Alrighty, happy 4th of July, everybody, as I am currently doing this at 1 in the morning on 4th of July, and I am actually taking a bit of a risk of doing this video right now because technically, as of now, it is the time where you're allowed to shoot off fireworks out. And if you guys hear any fireworks in the background, and you definitely know because you're gonna hear like a huge boom in the background. I do apologize for that, which is why I'm kind of taking a bit risk of doing this because, I said back in the preview that I tend to not do a video at nighttime during the 4th of July because that's when those people around my neighborhood is going to start shoot off fireworks and make a lot of noises, and hence that's why tomorrow when the final game is going to finish in terms of the 4th of July midweek action, I'm not going to do a review on that because it would be just way too loud with the fireworks going outside, and that you guys don't want to hear like fireworks and just loud noises while I do the review. So with that being said, let's actually talk about the news of the week, and I'm going to try to do this as quick as possible because I'm very tired right now. I basically was in Sacramento and just came back from Sacramento in a sports hop series, and I also had to work today. So yeah, that's why I am a little bit fatigued and my voice is kind of a little bit feel like it's about to ready to dive. So with that being said, let's actually jump into some of the news. And as I said last week, in terms of the news of the week, as we get closer to the transfer window, which I believe it opens next week, this is when I'm only going to talk about news that has something to do with reports that a player is coming to MLS, or if there's like an interleague trade that's going to happen, or if there is a deal that has been finished. And this week we actually had a lot of deals that have got done and that teams have already started to sign pre-contract on these players. And the first news, although it's not a signing, I decided to talk about this news first because this really shocks me when I saw this. But the New England Revolution are going to decide that they are going to splash $10 million on Xolos Striker Gustavo Bou. And, when you usually hear like an MLS team splash $10 million, you would think, oh, it's probably Atlanta United, or it's going to be like the Seattle Sounders, or even maybe the Portland Timbers. Some of those teams that have money that will of course splash the cash to get a DP kind of player like that. But when you heard that New England is the one that is doing it, it really shocks a lot of people because there's been time after time this New England ownership they've been kind of cheap in terms of the way that they sign players. Now, they have started to get a little bit better in terms of spending more, and it all started when they decided to get Carlos Hill this offseason. But now, this is just getting to a level of LAFC kind of signing where they are splashing out the cash, and that it's clear that this New England Revolution, this new kind of GM and new ownership that the Revs are kind of going through. Well, not new ownership. They still are under the Kraft ownership right now. But the new kind of front office that this New England team has, it's clear that it's being more ambitious than ever before in terms of trying to get wins. And I gotta give credit to them by doing that because there's been a long time people say that New England has been just an MLS 1.0 kind of team and that they're just stuck in that 1.0 mindset and being cheap in terms of signing just a bunch of nobodies, and then basically decide to sign an unknown coach to basically manage that team, and then it basically backfires very badly at the end of the season, and then eventually it goes really badly, like what happened when Brad Friedel was taking charge of this team. But now, knowing the fact that they got Bruce Arena, who has already shown that he is already working his MLS 1.0 magic in this team, they're now being more ambitious than ever. And definitely Gustavo Bou, from what I heard, he is a very lethal striker in Liga MX. For the past 4 seasons that he has been with Xolos and also with River Plate back in Argentina, he has scored at least 10 goals in those 4 seasons. So he's basically averaging more than 4. He's basically scoring 4 consecutive seasons with 10 goals or more, and that New England really need a striker that can score goals. Like right now, I think New England, their attack is definitely decent, But the thing that is the missing piece for this team is definitely the striker role, and I think Gustavo Bou will definitely solve that issue. And in fact, he could be like what Brian Fernandez is when he came in from Liga MX to MLS, and that is just start banging goals for the team. And I can definitely see Gustavo Bou do the same thing when he arrives in New England, whether if New England, of course, wanted to pay that money. I mean, that is an absurd amount of money to try to get a player, and a lot of teams that are like New England are kind of like a little bit cheap and not in the big market. That is definitely felt like a really ambitious kind of move, which again, I credit to what this New England front office is doing, being more ambitious and wanted to win right now instead of waiting it later. Now, next up is where I'm going to start talking about the signings that have done. And the first signing that have done, from what I heard these past week, is that FC Dallas has won the Edwin Jersey race. There's been a lot of report of the fact that Edwin Jersey is coming to MLS, and it seemed like now it's true because he has signed with FC Dallas from CSKA Sofia on a loan deal. I think there is an option to buy that FC Dallas received from CSKA Sofia, but at the same time, certainly Dallas, of course, gets some more attackers in that team, which is one of the things that they kind of lack in terms of the attack. Like, the defense for this team is definitely good, but the attack could be suspect at times with the way that they don't really usually score a lot of goals in terms of their attack. Now, Dallas also sold one of their playoff off in this week. They sold Carlos Grizzo to Augsburg for $4 million, and I believe last week I talked about how this was a rumor that Carlos Grizzo was going to go back to Germany and going to Augsburg for $4 million, which is definitely a good deal for Dallas, because I remember when they signed him a couple of years ago, they only paid $1 million for Carlos Grizzo, and obviously they have done a very good job in terms of developing him, and I think they just feel like this offer is good enough for them, and that they made $3 million off of this investment. That's definitely a good deal, and that's what Dallas wants to do with their players. Like, they have so many kind of academy player and so many youngster in that team, is that one day hopefully they can start, once they develop them, they can sell them off to European teams so that they can, of course, invest that not only on maybe getting better players in the future, but also in the academy. And this is a good example of that. And so, Dallas, certainly, I'm pretty sure they'll be very happy the fact that they're able to sell off one of the players that they developed, and now they, of course, are getting that investment in. Atlanta United have acquired Emerson Hyman on a loan deal from Bournemouth. Atlanta, of course, also have to pay $200,000 GAM to FC Dallas, as well as an international spot for discovery right reason. And do not ask me about the discovery right rule, because it's a dumb rule, and it's one of those rules that it's very hard to explain, but you don't really need to know, because it's, like I said, it's dumb. And it's something that I feel like MLS eventually is going to have to get rid of, because that's kind of like the discovery right rule is kind of like a cheap way to ask teams to, like, when they decided to get some player, but that player has been discovered by another team, now we have to, of course, pay the other team because of that. Like, no other leagues actually do this kind of stuff, and I just feel it's very, very dumb. But Atlanta, of course, acquired Emerson Hyman on a loan deal. I don't know if this loan deal also have a option to buy. I believe so, but it's good the fact that Emerson Hyman, I'm not quite sure if he's going to get a lot of minutes at Atlanta. I mean, I knew Emerson Hyman, there's been a lot of talk of him, whether or not does he want to decide to stay in the Premier League. Obviously, he's not getting a lot of minutes in Bournemouth, and that this was a guy that was known to be one of the future for the U.S. men's national team, and since he hasn't played a lot with Bournemouth lately, that's why he is started to kind of fade away from the national team. Now, him going to Atlanta United, I'm not sure if he's going to get more minutes, and I think if he's going to go to an MLS Cup, or not an MLS Cup, but an MLS team, I think Atlanta United might not be the best option, because they are pretty stacked going forward in terms of almost every position that they have. So, we'll see what what he will bring to the table for Atlanta United. Most likely, they're probably going to use him as a depth player, which I don't think that's a great idea for him. This is why I said it's not a great idea for him to go to Atlanta United, because if they're going to use him just as a depth player, he's not going to start every single game, in that he's going to find himself in the same situation as Bournemouth, which is kind of just rotting on the bench. But Columbus, they actually also will sign a player. And speaking of Atlanta, Columbus, of course, signed Atlanta attacker Romero Williams for $100,000 of general allocation money. And talk about bench warmers, yeah, Romero Williams was one of them, and he really never kind of got into this Atlanta United team, and that he was pretty much just kind of rotten on the bench. And it's just kind of makes me wonder, eventually he might be making a move and getting out of Atlanta United to get a starting spot, because there's no doubt that he definitely have the talent to be a good MLS player. So Columbus, of course, they decided to take that risk, and knowing the fact that Columbus are desperate to trying to get attacking player, consider how bad their attack has been, and probably the worst attack right now in the league. Well, actually, the worst attack I would say is Cincinnati, but Columbus is not far behind in terms of having one of the worst attack in the league. This is a signing that they absolutely need to make, and a gamble that they absolutely need to make. Now, that's not the only attacker that Columbus have signed. They also signed Costa Rican winger Luis Diaz on a young DP deal. And this is kind of interesting, because I thought Columbus has pretty much filled up their DP spot. And I'm not quite sure if the young DP counts as kind of like a DP spot. I think it kind of does. But with them already filled up with their DP spot, I wonder what is going to happen with them, and whether or not they're going to buy down one of those players in terms of DP spot. Like, I know one of their DP, Milton Valenzuela, who's also signed on a young DP deal, is out for the season, and that he's not going to come back until next season. So I wonder if, like, I'm not sure if this is actually true, and that the league allows this, but I'm guessing maybe, since they know that Milton Valenzuela is going to be out for the rest of the season, they might temporarily just buy down his deal, since, he's not playing right now. So why in the world are we making him a DP and still paying him expensive amount of money? And then we basically decide to get a young DP contract to Luis Diaz, and he fills that spot. And hopefully later on, when Milton Valenzuela does get back, we figure out the situation of whether or not if we're going to just keep Milton Valenzuela as the player that we brought down on his DP contract, or we're just going to brought down Luis Diaz, or even sell him off. I'm not quite sure if that's how it works in terms of the whole DP rule. That, like, there's a lot of different rules in terms of the what each team can do with their designated player. So yeah, this is definitely very interesting, but at the same time, like I said, they need attack, and Luis Diaz is another guy that, he's one of those CCL kind of hero back in April, where I thought you could say that these are kind of the players that they need to sign. And we already saw this season that Omar Brownie from Independiente got signed by Montreal, and that Montreal, of course, took a risk to try to sign a very talented player in CCL, and that he did very well with his team doing the CONCACAF Champions League. And it's the same thing now with Columbus. They're trying to take a risk and trying to sign Luis Diaz, who is part of that Heredino team that, of course, beat Atlanta in the first leg before, of course, losing in the second leg 4-0 in that game. So yeah, this is definitely a good signing for Columbus, considering the fact that they desperately need attacking player right now. But next up, Cincinnati. So Columbus' main rival Cincinnati also decided to start signing players, and this is definitely not a surprise, considering the fact that I feel like this summer transfer window is a huge transfer window for Cincinnati, trying to figure out what went wrong in terms of most of their signings, and that kind of just try to learn from the mistake of what they have done. Now, I know them signing a defender is not a good way to say that they learned their mistake in terms of signing a million defenders and a million kind of central defense mid, and that in some way they pretty much just didn't learn their mistake. They don't need defenders, they need attacker. But if you look at how bad FC Cincinnati defense has been lately, it's obvious that there is a reason why they really need to sign some defender to kind of stabilize that core. And one of the guys that they decide to sign is going to be Vitesse defender Mikhail van der Werf, and I believe he actually played with Goran Kasia, who of course was with Vitesse and was the captain of Vitesse back then. And obviously Kasia last year he came to the San Jose Earthquakes after we made that target get allocation move back in the last transfer window. So yeah, hopefully Mikhail van der Werf will be just like kind of Goran Kasia. I mean, Kasia, ever since he come to the Quakes from Vitesse, he's been okay, I guess. I mean, I won't say he's been amazing, but he's been doing an okay kind of job. And that I have heard back when we signed Kasia from Vitesse, a lot of Vitesse fans said that he is definitely a very good player. And I also have heard that Vitesse also said the same thing about Van der Werf being a very decent kind of defender. So hopefully for FC Cincinnati, this signing can definitely shore up in terms of their defense. But having said that, I just have a feeling they're going to eventually have to sign an attacker, considering the fact that that is probably the biggest need right now. Like, I know the defense is horrible right now, but their biggest need right now is clearly on an attacker, and just they need a striker. I mean, this Fernando Audi kind of DP signing that they have, boy, it has backfired big time, because Audi, I don't even think I think he has scored a goal for Cincinnati right now, but yeah, it's been a while since he has scored. And when you're a couple of years ago or last season say that he is the guy that's going to score the goals, but now he's not scoring the goals, yeah, that could definitely be an issue. And I just have a feeling they just got to sign an attacker or a striker that can score goals for this team, because otherwise, what are they going to do on the attack? And I think, actually, no, I think striker might not be their first priority. Their first priority has to be central attacking mid. They have not signed a single central attacking mid when they were kind of building the squad heading into the preseason. And we know how important central attacking mid is in this league. And we have seen so many good players in this league has been coming from central attacking midfielder, whether it's guys like Carlos Vela, Nicolas Ladero, or Diego Valeri. All of these players are central attacking mid player and are three of the best player in the league right now. So it's clear that FC Cincinnati need to get a position on that, and that they need to get a number 10, and then they can start building around in terms of that. So we'll see if that is going to happen for Cincinnati for the rest of the transfer window. But that being said, moving on into the next news, and I'm not sure if this actually is a report that is true or not, or that it might be just one of those crazy gossip. But apparently Chinese club Jinsu Suning FC have made a $10 million bid for Josie Altidore. And if this is actually true, for Toronto FC, this is a no-brainer. Like, seriously, $10 million for Josie Altidore. And I know Altidore has been an important piece for TFC, and he's the main goal scorer for that team after Sebastian Javinko left to the Middle East. But $10 million. Think about it. $10 million for a guy that is just injury prone, and that his career is going to continue to go downhill because now he's in his wrong side of 30. If you can get him for $10 million and then you can use that fund to basically build around this team, yeah, I would take this money in a heartbeat. Like, I don't think, this TFC front office and Ali Curtis, if he hear this deal and that if this is actually true, then what are they waiting for? Get this deal done so that they can get this $10 million and that now they can use this $10 million to rebuild this team, because there's just so many problems with this TFC team right now, and that what they really need right now is not only the players to address those issues, but they need some money. And this is a perfect amount of money to try to build around and trying to get a couple of decent kind of players, kind of like Alejandro Pozuelo kind of players, if they, of course, accept that bid. So there's no doubt that if this is true, I will be shocked if TFC does not take this. Like I will really question the front office for not taking this deal. Like anytime when an MLS team has an offer for a player for double figures of $1 million, yeah, you definitely are taking that in a heartbeat, because there hasn't been a lot of transfer in MLS where a player gets transferred to a Chinese club or going to Europe that has been that amount of figure. But moving on into the next news and to a more kind of realistic kind of report, because I feel like this is a little bit unrealistic, but this is more of a realistic report of the fact that Cruz Azul is interested in Houston Dynamo striker Mauro Manotas. And again, this is an interesting situation for the Dynamo, because they know that at least eventually they're going to have to sell him probably by the end of the season, because hopefully with Elise continue to do well this season for the Dynamo, that value increase as they heading into the off season. But with Mauro Manotas, it's kind of the same thing. If you decided to sell Elise and Manotas, you know that you are going to lose two of your catalysts in terms of the attack. But the thing is, you're gonna get the money from them, and I think for the Dynamo, they are the smallest market team and has like the smallest transfer budget out of any team right now. And that I know the Dynamos have been always known to be very cheap with some of their signings. But imagine if they can get a good price for Elise and Manotas, and that now they have a war chest of money. Maybe that will give them a little hope that they can, of course, start signing some big player with and start to spend that money that they got from Manotas and Leeds. I mean, look at what I said about New England earlier. This is a team that don't spend a lot of money in the past. Now they're spending that money because they, of course, received that money. This could maybe happen the same case with the Dynamo, where if the Dynamo are starting to get that money from those transfer, then they, of course, will definitely start to first sell those players, but then get that money so that they can, of course, build around this team. But moving on into the next news, and now kind of moving on in terms of the reports to a very interesting situation and a very interesting saga that's happening to one of the team in MLS right now. And that is the Vancouver Whitecaps is still undecided about the future of Ali Adnan. Now, I said this before in the preview and in the news of the week that I don't know what Vancouver is going to do with Ali Adnan, because he is the most important player for the Whitecaps right now. But they know that his loan deal ends on July 1st, and now we have gone past July 1st, and there's still no news on the fact that whether or not if they're going to sign or not re-sign him, but decide to sign him or decide to sell him off to one of the team in Italy, as they've been reported. What are they going to do? I mean, it's a very interesting kind of situation. And Marc Dos Santos have already kind of said in the media this week that he will make that decision when they play against LAFC. And that I guess the decision is, if he's not going to be included in the starting 11, then yeah, most likely they are going to sell them. But I'm pretty sure a lot of Whitecaps fans really want the Whitecaps to sign Ali Adnan. And why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't they? Because Ali Adnan has been the most important player for the Whitecaps, and to just let go of him after he's been your most important player and potentially let go of him for a free transfer, yeah, that is definitely going to really hurt the Whitecaps. And knowing the fact that they still have that amount, that I think they still do have enough amount to sign him after, they got a war chest of money after selling Alphonso Davies to Bayern Munich. I think they should still have enough money to get Ali Adnan, and that, yes, I know the Whitecaps front office don't want to spend because they already spent a lot during this off season, but for once, Ali Adnan is your most important player, and knowing the fact that if he's gonna walk out of your club for free, yeah, that is definitely not a very good way to try to invest on a player. I mean, you can sell him in the future and make some money, but if you sell him and you're making no money out of it, then that is a big, big issue. Now, the next news is not actually a report, but it's actually a done deal that the Timbers have extended Giovanni Savaresi's contract. And there's been a lot of question after what happened last year with Giovanni Savaresi. You know, I mean, I guess he had a very decent season because he reached the MLS Cup, and he's one of the few head coaches that able to get a team to MLS Cup after just one season. And I think after this season and after the early problem that they had, and there was a lot of talk about whether or not if Savaresi was the right man. Now, what he has done with Portland and what he has just kind of bring this team to just being a very exciting team. And I know they are near the bottom of the Western Conference, but there is no doubt that this team is going to make the playoffs, especially with the backload of home schedule that they had. You know, there's no doubt that the Timbers are happy to extend Giovanni Savaresi contract, and that, you know, Savaresi has definitely shown and proven that an NASL coach and a lower league coach can still get it done in MLS. Like, there's been a lot of talk about how when coaches come from the NASL level or in the lower league coaches, once they go into MLS, they will fail miserably. Nope, that doesn't seem like the case, and it seemed like Giovanni Savaresi has been proving that the case, and I'm pretty sure sooner or later Marc Dos Santos is going to prove that case too, where, you know, lower league coaches can still come to MLS and they can definitely coach a team to be a very good team and a team that can go to MLS Cup. But finally, to end this episode of News of the Week, and before I talk about this news, honorable mention, Vaco, of course, win Player of the Week, so that's good to see that one of our player and one of the Quakes player win this week, although that doesn't really change my opinions of the fact that he is kind of a player that is still very frustrating to watch. And also, Columbus, of course, agree on the Council of Columbus agree on the deal of building a new stadium in downtown. So that's a good news for Columbus Crew and one step closer in terms of building that new stadium in downtown. But the final news that I'm going to be talking about is that MLS is going to reintroduce the All-Star Challenge, the All-Star Skill Challenge heading into this year. And, you know, a lot of people don't know, but MLS All-Star game used to, doing the MLS All-Star weekend, but now it's kind of more like a midweek kind of action. There used to be an All-Star skill challenge, and that it was very strange, the fact that they decided to get rid of it, because, you know, we've seen so many times when you have some of these teams decided to post their own skill challenge, and C Player, of course, do skill challenge on their team YouTube channel, and I was wondering, why can they not do that in an All-Star game? I mean, it would have been even more awesome if they can do it in an All-Star kind of event, and there you go. MLS decided that is going to be the case. They're going to bring back the All-Star Skill Challenge. And the All-Star Skill Challenge, there's going to be 3 different challenges. There's the passing challenge, the shooting challenge, and also the technique and the volley kind of challenge. And that is the one where you're going to see players like Rootney and Nani going to try to do some crazy kind of effort in order to, of course, score a goal. So, yeah, I'm obviously very excited about this, as well as the All-Star game that's going to be happening later this month down in Orlando. But yeah, either way, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button, and yeah, I hope to see you guys next time. And also, let me know in the comments below if I'm missing any important news that has to do with like reports or signings that has been done recently or in the past week. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.